substitute the argument for things we never said. Nobody said that. And freedom of religion doesn't trump the other First Amendment rights.
That have a right to go worship the God of their choosing.
And that's not the argument here.
From doing that.
The First Amendment is not whataboutism. This is exactly the problem. This is exactly the problem with MAGA. Right? They write off these violations of our civil rights and call it whataboutism.
So in this clip, we are going to see Judge Glenda Hackett push back and actually give actual constitutional facts to a Donald Trump bootlicker called Tim Parrish, who tries to justify the arrest of Don Lemon. Now, let's watch the clip in full. I'm going to sprinkle my perspective throughout, but mainly towards the end. So if you don't like commentary where people pause and give their thoughts on what's being said, this video won't be for you. If you don't mind it, let's get into it.
Not guilty. That's the plea that Don Lemon made at his arraignment in a Minnesota courtroom today. Lemon is charged with conspiring to violate constitutional rights and violating the FACE Act, which bans the use of force or threats to interfere with religious practice. All of this stemming from this protest inside a St. Paul church last month. Now, the indictment, prosecutors say Lemon and other defendants engaged in a, quote, takeover-style attack of the church and engaged in acts of oppression, intimidation, threats, interference, and physical obstruction. But Lemon's own live-streamed video of the event appears to contradict that. His legal team says that Lemon's First Amendment rights were violated, and they indicated a motion to declare the case unconstitutional is forthcoming. The indictment makes no mention of Lemon being a journalist, despite Lemon making clear that is why he was there.
I'm just here. I'm just here photographing.
Are you okay?
I'm not part of the group. I'm just here photographing. I'm a journalist.
Lemon warned that his arrest is just part of the Trump administration's crackdown on the free press.
I wanted to say this isn't just about me. This is about all journalists. People are finally realizing what this administration is all about. The process is the punishment with them. And like all of you here in Minnesota, the great people of Minnesota, I will not be intimidated. I will not back down. I will fight these baseless charges, and I will not be silenced.
So a couple of key interactions between Lemon and members of the church are used in the indictment to claim that he was trying to physically impede them or threaten them or what have you. But then when you watch the video, and the Washington Post did a great breakdown of this, it shows essentially the opposite. How important is that going to be in this case?
It's very important, and I think it's very strategic on Don's attorney's part that they've asked for the transcript from the grand jury. I don't think they'll get it, but what they're basically saying is that what evidence did you present to the grand jury to get this indictment against him? I think this is going to be a long legal battle, and I think we're going to see it played out in the courts over the time. But the First Amendment is very, very clear. And if we go down this road and this happens and he is found guilty on this case, it is a dangerous precedent.
Do you think he could be?
I think under the situation of them going after him, I think they're making an example of him. Ultimately, I would hope that the guardrails will prevail in this case and that the courts will not find him guilty.
But that's exactly what they're trying to do, right? No movement in modern history has tried to tamper free speech more than the MAGA movement. We're talking about Don Lemon making an example, tweeting from the White House account, making an example of him. What happened with Alex Preddy when he was exercising his First Amendment rights? And there are so many other further examples. The Washington Post, CBS News, TikTok. All down the line, our information is becoming more and more dominated by right-wing extremists, and anyone who wants independent thought should be pretty concerned about this.
And do you know what the interesting part for me is, as I always say, as an outsider looking in? I remember when these guys first got into office and J.D. Vance, the couch lover, had the audacity to come over here to Europe and try and lecture us on impeding people's free speech. I'll never forget that, because Europe, we were furious about it. And everything we've seen play out with this administration has just been a complete contradiction of it. These guys hate free speech more than absolutely anyone. And that's the reason as to why you've literally seen them weaponize the Justice Department and then go after people just to make a point, simply just to try and intimidate.
actually did a deep dive on this because we talked about this story before, and I wanted to get some facts. And so I did a little bit of a deep dive on this. And, you know, first of all, let me just start by saying I absolutely respect and would hope history would show that I've been a champion of the First Amendment for journalists and individual Americans and everybody. So I want to start by that. But every time that this has come up, actually, I won't say every time, in most cases that this has come up, pre-Donald Trump, pre-MAGA, as you put it, actually the Supreme Court has said every time that journalists' First Amendment rights do not trump the First Amendment rights, particularly of parishioners. There was a 1972 case that came out. There was case law. It was Brandsburg v. Hayes. The Supreme Court specifically said that the First Amendment right of journalists are not give them some supreme authority over people who are on private property. And they point out, even in that case law, particularly parishioners, if you don't have a reason to be there for the reason that that private property is being used for, in this case, a church, and if someone on that property asks you to leave in authority, which in this video we see several times he's asked to leave along with everybody else, you're violating the law. So much so that we created special laws in this country, the FACE Act and the KKK Act, which I believe he's being charged with both, to protect parishioners.
It's just the FACE Act.
Just the FACE Act?
Yeah.
Initially, I think they were talking about the KKK Act as well, but the FACE Act,
they didn't do
that is specifically created for this situation. And the Supreme Court has said time and time again, you don't, because you're a journalist, particularly in this case where you're like a YouTube journalist or you have a badge on, it doesn't give you the right to tamper with other people's First Amendment rights, other Americans who are worshiping. And the pastor there said something very specific. He said, we come to church to worship Jesus, not for politics or to cover it on your YouTube story.
And that Supreme Court decision, I know, and you're absolutely right in quoting it, but that does not apply in this situation because he was not interfering with their right to worship. And that is the distinction. And that is what he's being charged with. And I think ultimately that's going to be sorted out. That case that you referenced now, I understand and I believe that that's the right decision. I do not think that that applies in this
case. So I think the administration was overzealous in how they pursued this indictment to the points that have been made. The way they portrayed some of what we've seen on video is not accurate. That's for the court to sort out. But what we're also kind of not paying attention to, you showed that clip of him saying, I'm a journalist. But when he was asked by the pastor to leave, which it took him 7 minutes to leave, his story changed. He was no longer a journalist. He was now a worshiper. He was changing the story based on the situation. Also, in that Washington Post analysis that you referenced, they mentioned that the producer with Don Lemon on video, demonstrated on video, started to join the chants and the heckling of those protesters who did go into that church. So I don't know the circumstances there. I don't know if he got approval from Don to do that. I don't know if he just got caught up in the moment. But the guy who was there attached to Don Lemon's hip was part of what took place.
Well, look, I mean, I think that producer is going to have to answer for his own.
That's right.
Conduct,
That's
absolutely
right?
will.
So every person is being charged individually, and the demonstrators as well.
Will be charged differently.
You brought up the FACE Act, and as you pointed out, it protects religious sites, but it also protects abortion.
That's the point I was
going
to make.
And President Trump, I think this was maybe the first or the second day that he was in office, he pardoned 23 anti-abortion activists who had been charged under the FACE Act. And just to give you an example of what some of these individuals were charged with doing, forcibly grabbing a patient's body, intentionally crushing a staff member's hand in a door, broke into a clinic, pushed a nurse who sprained her ankle, accosted a woman having labor pains, barricaded doors of clinics with bicycle locks, threatened women entering a clinic. This is...
I mean, guys, let me pause that and take a look at what's on your screen right here. This is the hypocrisy of the right. This is the hypocrisy. And this is just further proof that it's not a thing about trying to protect people's rights. It's not that. It's just simply because of the fact that Don Lemon speaks out against this administration and he's being a very vocal critic of Donald Trump. As we all know, he is literally just trying to get revenge on Don Lemon. That's all it is. And listen, some of you may not agree, but I do believe an element of this is due to the fact that Don Lemon is a black journalist. I do believe it. I do believe that's the reason why they're trying to make an example of him. Because if they really believed what it is that they said, why would Donald Trump pardon 23 anti-abortion protesters that violated the very thing that it is that they're trying to charge Don Lemon for. They don't care about this stuff. They don't care about it at all. They're just looking for a way to silence a very vocal and a very loud critic of Donald Trump. And as we saw from Pam Bondi in the hearing the other day, her department, they're always going to do the bidding of Donald Trump rather than protect victims of the Epstein files as well as the American people.
The same law, right? The very same law. And 23 people have been pardoned for conduct that at least what I just read, these are physical acts of violence.
Right, which is why the FACE Act,
their rights.
Yes.
Correct, which is why the FACE Act was passed in the first place. I remember because I was interning in 1994 when this was passed. And the reason why the religious aspect was added in was because it was a way to get the Republicans to compromise. Right. So it was originally to protect women who were going to abortion clinics, to stop them from getting accosted like this, because it was their constitutional right. It used to be, and now it wasn't. Now it isn't anymore. But and then the right-wing Republicans said, okay, then we're going to put in churches. Now, the hypocrisy here is what you just pointed out, is that Donald Trump pardoned people who actually physically accosted folks in an abortion clinic. That did not happen here. Yes, did they disrupt? Okay, fine. But is it really necessary to throw the book like this at these folks because it's their people in a religious a religious institution. So now we're going to go after them hard and fast. But when Donald Trump wants to pardon people, that's okay. But this is the pattern of that. It's hypocrisy, and it's to try to send a message to squash dissent from anyone who speaks out against him, particularly journalists and people he doesn't like. There is an established pattern here of it. We started to go down the Washington Post reporter's house, who was they came in to seize her devices and information because of whistleblowers speaking to her. You have what's going on with corporate media and a lot of other places with Donald Trump suing people because he doesn't like edits. And now you have him going after Don Lemon, who is a friend of mine and yours. We all know Don. But he's using him as an example. That's right, universities and law firms. So, I mean, this is a pattern
put himself in this situation.
No.
When he says things like, after we do this operation,
are you kidding?
He's putting himself in the middle of it.
Do you think he deserves to go to jail?
That's for the court to decide. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know the legalities. I just think it looks bad, and I think it was beneath the standards of what is considered journalism for him to have acted in the way that he acted.
We can do the timing, though. The interesting of the timing.
We can do the whataboutism all day, but at the end of the day, fundamental to everything that we all believe in as Americans, the very bedrock of part of why our country was even began, is the ability for people to worship safely and secure. There was a pastor there who said,
freedom of the press.
They were absolutely being prevented from doing that.
The First Amendment is not whataboutism.
Right.
This is exactly the problem. This is exactly the problem with MAGA. Right? They write off these violations of our civil rights and call it whataboutism.
There was a pastor in that video.
We're sick of it.
We'll be sick of it. But there was a pastor in that video who
That's
said,
how MAGA feels.
There was a pastor in that video who said, when we come to this building, we come to worship Jesus. We don't come to hear Don Lemon's political proclivities and what he cares about in politics.
He was there
we
as a
don't care about that. We came in this building to worship Jesus. That's sacred in this country, and that should be something that all of us at this table could agree on. And I'm sorry that it's not.
Nobody has argued that. No, you can't go in and worship.
Sorry that it's not.
Nobody said that. That's what MAGA does. You have substitute argument for things we never said. Nobody said that. And freedom of religion doesn't trump the other First Amendment rights.
That have a right to go worship the God of their choosing.
And that's not the argument here.
We got to leave it there. I just want to note
with yourself.
that others have pointed out that there have been protests at black churches that have not been prosecuted by this administration. So again, there's a question of consistency. The FACE Act is yes, the FACE Act is not being upheld by this administration equally.
And
according to how the law is written. And in fact, a DOJ memo is also telling its prosecutors they actually can't prosecute cases that relate to abortion clinics without special permission from the front office.
So you disagree with Trump's pardoning of those?
We got to go, my friends. Next for us, the president.
Honestly, MAGA's hypocrisy. It's like what everybody says, isn't it? There's always a tweet. There's always a message. There's always a response that just completely blows apart these guys' justification for anything. Like see, I'll be honest, I didn't even know anything about the FACE Act in regards to abortion clinics. I didn't know about that. But funny that there's no outrage from the right when it comes to that. Because all this literally is this. And this is what this administration has shown me. Especially on the right. Especially on the right. A lot of these guys don't care about the Constitution. They don't. They just care about their side winning. The amount of times that I've seen Donald Trump float an idea that would go against the Constitution and MAGA, his supporters, would say, yeah, let's go along with it, speaks volumes. The fact that it is that abortion clinics have been the situations where abortion clinics have been in a similar situation to the church that it is that Don Lemon was in Minneapolis, I believe it was. And the fact that Donald Trump pardoned those individuals, showing that the FACE Act, this isn't something that it is that he and his department, his DOJ, take serious. This is all performative. That's all this is. This is all this is. It's performative. And the thing I don't understand is this. Why wouldn't MAGA stand by and allow this to happen, and Republicans? Because this is the thing. What happens if Democrats get back into power? What if the midterms, they do a clean sweep? What about in 2028 if they win, absolutely, if they win the election? What happens then? What's going to be MAGA's thought processes then? Where are MAGA going to go from there? Because they're going to be on the other side of it and they're going to be trying to beg and plead and try and make out, oh, this is unconstitutional. But this is the reason why trying to do politics in this sort of way makes no sense. It doesn't. And that's the reason as to why, just from the outside looking in, America right now is in such a difficult place. I see it in the comments of my videos. I see Americans praising me. Thank you for covering it. Our country is an absolute mess right now. And that's because of this administration. And if there's anything that just shows it more than anything, that these people don't really care about true justice. They just care about Donald Trump. It was Pam Bondi's performance the other day. That was the perfect example that these guys don't really care about trying to do things and trying to help the American people. They care about Donald Trump. The amount of praise that it is that she gave him, it felt like a church service and Donald Trump was their God. But that shouldn't surprise us in any way, shape or form. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below on this exchange on ABby Phillips and CNN Newsnight. While you guys are down there, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button and also hit subscribe if videos like this, as well as my commentary from someone who's on the outside looking in, is of interest to you guys. All right, I appreciate you guys. And as usual, I will see you guys in the next clip.